Scream out in theaters should actually be named Scream 5 in my opinion, because it's not a reboot or a remake, but as the film describes itself at multiple points, it's a requel, which is something along the line, which is defined as something along the lines of the 2018 Halloween film. It takes place in the same world, technically continues the previous storyline, uses legacy characters who are still there, but also introduces a new group of characters and a new story that's supposed to take over. It's the first Scream film not to be directed by Wes Craven, who passed away in 2015. Instead, this one was done by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, both of whom previously made Ready or Not. In terms of the cast, we have a whole group of newcomers joined by returning veterans of the franchise, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox and David Arquette. The story is similar to the other Scream movies. Once again, in Woodsboro, someone is donning the Ghostface mask and murdering people. Once again, there seems to be a connection to the original murders and Sidney Prescott. And once again, the old characters and the new ones have to come back and try to figure out who's responsible. Now, here's the thing. On paper, on the most fundamental level, as a slasher film, this new Scream is not terrible. The killing sequences are entertaining, properly bloody. The movie plays very well with your suspicions and keeps you guessing who the real killer is. Having the characters be aware of the horror rules is always cool in my book. But it does feel tired, at least for me. Very tired at some points. It feels like the film is just once again doing exactly the same thing that the franchise has done over and over again over the years. And yes, as is tradition, it is also a meta-commentary on requels this time around and these soft reboots that Hollywood seems to have fallen in love with. But I feel that where especially the first two Scream movies were really well balanced between being a meta-commentary on a genre and a competent representative of that genre at the same time, this one isn't quite as well executed on that front. I feel that by now the whole meta self-referencing thing has just looped in on itself. There's a scene in the film where a character is sitting on a couch, in a very, very particular couch, in a very particular house, without spoiling too much, watching a scene in the fictional in-universe film Stab, and the scene takes place on the same couch, in the same house, and that scene itself is a recreation of the events from the original Scream film. And that scene also happens on the same couch in the same house. It's like the film is trying to become a fractal, just referencing the references ad infinitum. And I admit, it was tedious to me at this time around. And the fact that you're aware of what you're doing as a filmmaker and you're pointing it out to the audience, being kind of tongue-in-cheek, I feel it doesn't just magically fix the fact that this problem still persists. And apart from that, there were some individual things that I didn't like as much. I think that the legacy characters are nothing more than plot devices this time around. The 2011 Scream 4 was already sort of a revival with a new group of characters, but the old ones returning. But that time around, all the old ones played a very active role. They were very involved in the story. This time, it's not the case. Other than the nostalgia factor, I think that they could have been removed from the film altogether and the story would have gone exactly the same. I think that the way the hospital sequence ends, without spoiling too much, felt incredibly stupid in terms of what the character in it decides to do. Felt very out of place and out of character. And also, there's one bizarre scene towards the end which made me go, is this a callback to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Because, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but on the one hand, these two films had nothing in common, and on the other hand, the similarities in this one individual scene are so huge that it couldn't have been a coincidence. It's just a very bizarre choice. And also, as a final thing, there's apart from the commentary on requels, the film also tries to comment on toxic fandoms, and in doing so, tries to pretty directly reference Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi, Star Wars, and I just don't think it makes its case too well. So, here's my case. Here's my take. Sorry. If you're a young moviegoer who hasn't seen the Scream movies before, I think the film, weirdly enough, is an okay entry point because you don't need too much prior knowledge. You don't have to go back to the older ones. and you won't have the fatigue from seeing the same thing for the fifth time. But if, like me, you did see all the other movies, you still remember them, I feel this may be too much, because even if the film in theory is alright, after a certain point, even good things become repetitive and boring.